Hello, people of grace. Today I want to talk about testimony, or what we do when we testify. In 1 John chapter 5, John talks about one sign of God's work of grace in a human's heart is that a testimony comes out from deep inside of us. And when you have that testimony in you, it shows that Jesus is alive and well, that the Spirit is at work in you, that you're a child of the light. And so for our brief time together right now, I just want to talk about 3 times when we really need to testify, and when we are in step with God's Spirit, we will testify, and that it will be authentic and grace-based. The first time is when we feel vulnerable or threatened or critiqued or attacked or even isolated. This idea of testifying or testimony really kind of fits the courtroom. You're being put on trial and you have to give a testimony, and you're going to be judged by your testimony. So a way to kind of probe the depths of our own hearts and really have God's wisdom and God's Spirit draw truth out of us is to consider how we respond when we feel vulnerable, when we feel threatened, when we feel like we're being judged. Do we run toward Jesus and take our stand on him? Or do we shrink back and kind of bury that and hide that? That's becoming more and more of a challenge in today's world, is the willingness to go on record for Jesus. A second time when that kind of becomes a hinge moment on the door of our life of whether that testimony of God is alive and well in us is when we are asked what we think is ultimately true or what ultimately matters. And this idea of testimony is really just directed to history. What do you believe happened? What are the facts? In our world today, we are getting caught more and more into what is, in some circles, could be called higher critical thinking, where we are adopting a theory and then really trying to make the world fit that theory. And lower critical thinking is just looking at the evidence. And you can tell by the way they're labeled which one our world values more. But really, lower critical thinking is more objective and really just examines the evidence. When you are being challenged to say what you believe is true, we're not being asked to engage in this higher critical thinking, as important as that may be, even in developing your Christian apologetic. We're just being asked to testify about what we believe really happened. This is like the blind man in John chapter 9. He wasn't a trained theologian or apologist or philosopher or lawyer. He had never even seen Jesus, but he testified to the facts of what had happened. And that's what we need to do. When we're asked what is true, we need to testify about our confidence in the facts of Jesus' life, his death, his resurrection, his fulfillment of prophecy, and then what we believe he has done for us. So, when you're asked about what you think is ultimately true, what do you testify about? And the third one might be the most important. The third kind of aspect of testimony in the Bible is related to really our core sense of identity or purpose or meaning in life. When you feel like your life might be purposeless or you're having a bit of an identity crisis, do you press into your role as a prophetic voice, as a follower of Jesus Christ? That's ultimately our cause. That's our purpose, is we are here for a prophetic representation of God in this world. We are called to testify, not to argue people into the kingdom. You don't really succeed very often in doing that. I think we are here to give a prophetic challenge a proclamation of what God has done. So that really ties into how John uses the idea of testifying or testimony in the book of Revelation. And especially Revelation 12, though John mentions testifying in other chapters of Revelation. In Revelation 12, he says that we overcome darkness, we overcome the dragon, we overcome Satan by the blood of the Lamb, the word of our testimony, and that we do not love our lives so much as to shrink from death. So that gives us three things. The first one is positive, the blood of the Lamb. When we're cornered, we love Jesus. We testify to what he has done for us on the cross historically and in his resurrection. And it's a positive motivation for us. We love him and we're willing to be called to the mat for him. But the other motivation is negative. It's a fear of death. And John says that for us to overcome and be faithful witnesses or people who testify, we cannot love our lives so much as to shrink from death. And death wears many faces. Death can speak to being made fun of on social media. Death can speak to being isolated or maybe rejected by people that, for whatever reason, you value them. So are you more motivated in how you carry out your life, your presence on social media, how you interact with people, by your positive love for Jesus, or by your fear of rejection? What will your testimony be? Will you testify? Will you step into that prophetic role? Testify for Jesus. It's what we're here for. Even the heavens declare the glory of God. We, as Jesus' witnesses, need to maintain that same testimony. Have a blessed day, and be challenged to take a positive stand for Jesus and represent him well. He is the source of our courage, and the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of our prophetic call. Have a great day.